What's the biggest secret you're willing to admit without making a throwaway account? I'm very small in a size, and as soon as a load of laundry is done, I like to just curl up in a ball and sit in a warm basket. A cat that can type. I have a Himalayan rock salt lamp. When I'm home alone, I'll sit there idly licking it, often for hours. I wonder when my boyfriend will notice the lamp shrinking. OMG, I have one of these too, and may have tested it a time or two. It might be a remnant of licking the cattle salt blocks on the farm as a kid. So tasty though. I found my mom's journals shortly after she died of cancer, which were full of plans to kill herself, and I've never told my dad or sister. When I was 15, I was having an epic masturbation session in my bathroom and I forgot to close the door all the way. As soon as I reached that point of no return, my dog ran into the bathroom and jumped onto my leg, causing me to lose balance, and I finished onto my black-haired dog. My mom was going to be home from work in 15 minutes, so I immediately took my dog to the tub and gave him a bath. Which of course made my mom very suspicious, cause I have never done this before, but I just told her I was bored. I think she suspected I was on drugs. I wish it were that. Till mom logic equals drug use results in washing pets. I once pooped under my friend's dad's pillow because he slapped her so hard she fell down the stairs. You are amazing. When I was 4, my mom took me to the mall. When we were leaving, I tell my mom I have to go potty. It was dark outside and we were in an empty parking lot, so she told me to go in the bushes. She stands right next to me while I do my business. I took a crap on her foot. She was quite upset when she realized having to go potty doesn't necessarily mean having to pee. TLDR, I crap on my mom. I went to university and didn't pay for any of it. I just showed up to class and took a seat. On my 3rd month and 2nd paper, the prof approached me and told me she couldn't identify me nor find my ID number. I shook her hand and walked out of there. Philosophy. Nothing gained, nothing lost. When I was in college, I was really depressed and hired, aka posted on Craigslist, someone to go to one of my classes where attendance was mandatory. That was a bad time in my life, but it shows how easy it is to cheat the system. I secretly fantasize about a girl in my class. No, not in the normal way my wife wouldn't like. This girl in my class, she taps her boot incessantly against her chair, every freaking day. Tap 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 like a chihuahua with an epinephrine addiction. I fantasize about duct taping her foot to her face and flinging her out into the hall. Maybe she'll be lucky enough to encounter someone that knows Morse code and can help her out of her duct tappy prison. Or maybe a bear. Who the frick does that for a straight house at cap objects? Alright, this is a little bit on the sexual side, but I used to do some online stripping, and my cousin and I had a plan to get more money from the guys. She would pretend to sleep and I would get online and start saying things like, "Oh, I wish I could strip right now, but my cousin is asleep in the room with me and I don't want her to wake up and see me stripping online. That would be awful." The guy would beg and beg and beg. So I said for an extra 100 I would. Worked like a charm. It boggles my mind that people would pay that much money for stuff like that. My wife works a night shift as a nurse. As a result, on the days that she reacclimates to her normal schedule, she'll often fall asleep on the couch. When she does, I will often rearrange little things that she leaves around the room. Her phone, glass of water, TV remote, etc. She's convinced she's either sleep reorganizing or that the cats are malicious. Don't feel bad. She dishes out pranks with some serious vengeance in her own right. I've had sex with a guy. I'm a married father of 3. My wife had an abortion when we were younger. I like to get into the military. I have been masturbating way before reaching puberty. Joined the club. I used to lay on my stomach to watch TV, and dang did it feel good to press my hips against the ground, realizing how obvious it had to have been to my parents. Cringe. I'm a 27-year-old male. I work in construction and live with my girlfriend. I cannot go to sleep without watching SpongeBob SquarePants. I watch it every night on my tablet after she goes to sleep. When I was 4, I crap in a cup in the shower. I didn't feel like getting out and taking a toilet poop, so I grabbed a cup my sister used to give my baby sister a bath. After my shower, it was my baby sister's time to take a bath. Mid-bath my sister took a log of poop to the noggin. There are naked photos of me all over the world. I was celebrating Mardi Gras out of state and I got obliterated. I also got naked. Lots of college girls in my dorm ended up taking lots of photos of me even after I went back to my room and passed out in bed. They used my suite mates to get in. A few of them told me about it and showed me the pictures when we started our spring break at the end of the week. I asked them to delete the photos. They agreed, but when we got to Jamaica their phones and cameras were stolen. We did iPhone search and saw some in Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. Some Jamaican were probably wondering why some crazy naked white boy had filled up the phones and cameras. You had me till white boy. When I was in high school, strict Catholic high school, I brought a packet of cigarettes to school. One of the cool kids saw it in my bag and asked for one, so I gave it to her. She told her friends that I had cigarettes and they all came to me asking for some. I felt popular for the first time in my life, so I handed them out and felt all cool and stuff. One of the kids got caught by a teacher with a cigarette that I gave her and she told the teacher that she got it from me. I got called into the school counselor's office and I knew I was going to cop heck for this, so I made up a story about how I was always sad and had no friends and I thought that giving out cigarettes would make people like me. Then I ratted out everyone that I gave them to. All of their parents got told and they all got suspended. I didn't even get a lecture because I was troubled and just needed a little help. I've only told 2 people this in my life, so here goes. The summer before my freshman year of high school I lost my virginity to my aunt. A few times I've made posts to Art Hill that ended up getting a lot of upvotes, but the things I posted, I'd actually learned them a few days prior. I use the handicap stalls in public washrooms because they're luxuriously big, and I've never seen anyone use them who wasn't able-bodied. That's not necessarily a bad thing. They're handicapped accessible, not handicapped only. I'm a 21-year-old male and I've never been on a date in my entire life, nor have I ever tried. That sounds really weird, I know, but dating never had any appeal to me whatsoever. I've always been single and I like it that way. I was raised to be abstinent, so I've never considered dating for sex. I've come to terms with the fact that I will most likely never have sex with anyone, which probably sounds pretty pathetic, but I honestly just don't care. I really don't. Fairly sure we killed some civilians in northern Afghanistan due to incompetency and groupthink around a map of the area. Called for artillery and where it landed was not where we wanted it. Small collection of tents and such. Collateral damage due to ignorance. Suddenly this thread isn't as fun anymore. I fricked my best friend's 35-year-old single mom when we were 18. She had him when she was 17 and divorced her husband 3 years before we met, and he never found out about it. My best friend Josh and I slept over at each other's houses every week or so since we lived 2 doors down from one another. One night that was a couple weeks before I graduated high school, I woke up to hearing something hitting the wall in the guest bathroom with a rhythmic slapping, and being naturally curious I went to go look. For all I knew it was some murderer or something equally horrible, but I was tired and didn't give a dang. Well, I kind of got a decent surprise as I walked in on my buddy's mom masturbating wildly, and she noticed me immediately only to stare at me as she kept going. Like, this woman didn't even stop for a millisecond when she saw me and waved me over like it was some kind of cheap porno. Me being a frisky 18-year-old just went for it and awkwardly took off my boxers that I still remember ripped them a bit. Needless to say, we went at it for a while and when we finished we didn't say a word. I had scratches all over my back, a shaky leg, and a stupid smile on my face. To this day I think my performance was subpar, but we both got a rush out of it, so it kind worked itself out. Went to bed and the next morning I woke up to my buddy going, "Dude, what the frick?" Apparently some of the scratches were pretty deep and I bled on the tan carpeted floor in my sleep, prompting my friend to freak out. When he told his mom, she did nothing but giggle like a kid and just kept throwing me lip biting faces the whole morning while she cleaned it up. Oddly enough, his mom and I fricked about 5 more times, and I got a whole lot better before I moved a couple weeks after high school ended, and later when they moved 2 hours south he was none the wiser. The whole ordeal was never brought up again, but it's what prompted my kink of liking older women. Dear Penthouse, This happened recently and have been pretty ashamed to tell anyone, so here it goes. Luckily, after my final year of high school, my family and I went on a holiday to the UK and France for a few weeks. We had a great time, but were pretty out of the loop, mainly due to a lack of internet. However, my dad cottoned on after a few days and bought a UK SIM card so that we could use his iPhone as a hotspot. It worked fine for when we were chilling out around the house, but when he went to sleep he would turn it off. Some nights I would still be up and may have the urge to yank the Olay snake, so I would turn on my 3G based in Australia and get it done. I didn't think much of this at the time, but when we got back, we received a $700 phone bill for global roaming charges due to extensive 3G use. Most expensive faps ever. But when I was questioned about it, I denied everything and got away scot-free. My dad questioned the validity of the charges and luckily got $300 removed for the bill. However, I do feel bad about the cost being passed on. TLDR. Went overseas, used 3G to fap, got a $700 phone bill and fapped away scot-free. I have epilepsy. I'm on my 4th set of medications after breaking through the last 3 in fear that one day I'll have a seizure at the wrong place and time. Every note, text, or conversation with my wife and kids ends with me telling them I love them because that's the last thing I want them to hear me say. What they don't know is that I secretly record video advice for my wife and children meant to be opened at milestones during their lives. This is very touching, and I do hope that you will keep on leading a full, happy life with your family. I really wish this for you. Internet hug. I found a shared network when I lived with my sister and the only folder in it were pictures of my sister and her boyfriend having sex. It was a very odd discussion with her. In 2nd grade I wrote the word frick in the condensation on the bus window and then quickly erased it. I was so worried the bus driver had seen and would write me up that afternoon that I faked a stomachache and had the nurse call my mom to come pick me up. It's been almost 20 years and I've never told a soul. I had a 20-year crush on my brother-in-law, my sister's husband. I have my own husband of 24 years, but my brother-in-law is tall, dark and handsome, and funny and caring. My husband is none of those things. I got married young. My brother-in-law and sister moved away. My crush is waning, but I'm positive I married the wrong man. I don't mean to sound like a birch, but dang, I feel horrible for your husband. I once had a loaner car while my car was in the shop. I was coming home one day around 11 AM when some old guy pulled out in front of me. I immediately swerved to avoid T-boning him and I slammed into a tree going 50 miles per hour head on. I was beat up and out of commission for almost a month. I had to quit football, bowling, gym, all my hobbies. The guy ended up running from the scene and they never found him even though I told them where he came from and the car details. I figured he was visiting someone. I still remember what he looked like and the model color of his car. I remember him because as I looked out my missing windshield, I saw him slow down, peek out of the car and shrug his shoulders at me like it was my fault. I was going the speed limit. One day when I was driving past that exact location I had my accident, I saw that exact same car pulling off the street. I don't forget a face, and I was 100% it was him. I pulled right in front of him, blocking him, got out of my car and went up to him while his window was down. I gave him 3 solid punches to the face and wrote his license plate down. This happened almost 1 month ago and now the accident is back under investigation now that I have his license plate. The cops asked if I beat the guy up and of course I denied it. Beat up is a strong word. He has a shiner and a bruised cheek. He'll be alright. There is my secret. Nothing major emo. In HS, I found out I was bi. I slept with a ton of older men I met on Craigslist, like my dad's age, and eventually one offered me money. I saw him a couple times and after that, I started charging and by the end of it, I had a group of regulars. One became a friend. I can't do basic math. If you asked me what 17 and 13 was I wouldn't be able to answer, and even if I counted with me hands I'd probably mess up and have to start all over again. I don't regret that the man I used to love died in a vehicular accident. It's not that I didn't love him, or had a bad life or whatever. It's just that my life now with my husband and job and lifestyle is more than I could have hoped for with my previous partner. He was a lovely man, but had no ambition. I honestly would have been content with traveling as stupid hippies together, because I enjoyed my time with him and our friends. But looking back on it now, I've unleashed my potential without him, and have built a better life where I won't have to rely on government handouts, or sleeping on friends' couches. A lot of friends I know of this account, and would be kind of horrified if they ever found this. But I guess if they want to bother knowing about my Reddit history, they may as well find out the whole truth. I like this one because it shows how we can become literally different people over time. I have genital herpes. I got them from a cheating ex. I have medications to control it. My boyfriend now does not have it and we plan to keep it that way. Also, if I find out who my ex is dating, I'll Facebook her to tell her that he had it because he doesn't ever tell anyone and doesn't see the problem. My 2 biggest secrets. I zipped my dong in my jeans when I was in 8th grade. I have to convince girls I don't have herpes when they see the scar on my dong. I stopped selling weed coke to get a job and be a responsible adult. It was a terrible decision. I have a legitimate business and all I want to do is sell weed and coke. When I was like 14, I was sleeping over at an aunt's house with my little sister. I found a baby chick that my little cousin had been keeping as a pet. The chick was near death, wet, lying on the floor of its cage in its own feces with ants crawling on it. I took it out, cleaned it and dried it off and kept it warm, and within just a few hours it was back to a happy, healthy looking baby chick, hopping around all full of life. I loved it so much I kept it in bed with me. I fell asleep. I ending up squishing the poor thing to death with my leg in my sleep. I was so devastated and traumatized that I ran in the bathroom and cried. When my parents found us, I blamed it on my little sister. I felt too guilty, too ashamed. My mom still thinks it was a TLDR. Accidentally killed a baby chick and blamed it on my little sister. Anytime I'd come over to my wife's girlfriend at the time apartment, I'd wipe my dong on her decorate towels. They were these lame butt towels from Target with lettering on them that said something like good clean fun. One day I had the door open to wash my hands and I started to dry my hands with those towels. She said I couldn't use those towels because they are decorative. Then she made me use this grungy looking towel to dry my hands off. After that, every time I came over, I'd wipe my dong all over those stupid freaking towels. I used to crawl around in the sewers of my town as a teenage boy, not to play Ninja Turtles, but to find manhole covers that girls walked over. I am tired of my fiance's lack of general education and inability to learn, as well as general paranoia and irrationality. I consider leaving on a weekly basis, but I'm so afraid of being alone again that I'm still around. She also stalks half the stuff I do, so I'll probably hear about this soon. My wife likes to shout questions from another room and she usually can't hear me unless I'm right next to her, so I will reply with incoherent non-word vocalizations until she comes close enough to hear. Also, the acoustics in our house are not conducive to talking to people in other rooms. I don't know what my major malfunction is, but I've always wanted to be a survivor of some random, senseless, traumatic act of mass violence. Whenever I hear news reports on another school shooting or mall shooting, I'm utterly disgusted and usually in a state of shocked sadness. Sandy Hook had me in tears for days. But at the same time I end up having fantasies of being there, being a survivor and having an impressive story to tell people. I'm sure if it actually happened I would defecate in my underwear and beg for my mother though, so no illusions there. About every day I consider leaving without telling anyone and hitchhiking to Alaska to humble myself in bus 142 and be one with nature. The fantasy isn't always the cliche Alexander Supertramp into the wild story, but I am heavily inspired by it. I just want to get away from everything and do nothing more than exist. The only thing keeping me from it is my love for my computer and the, albeit few, bonds I would be breaking with people. I also do not know how I'd go about it since I have very little money and it is a very daunting idea. I also don't want to end up like Chris McCandless. When I was in elementary school, our computer system used one login for all adults, teachers, librarians, etc., and one for kids. Well, being the overly curious kid I was, I watched the librarian really closely as she logged in one time. I was about 10, so she didn't really think twice about logging in front of me. As soon as our class went to the computer lab to do an activity, I logged onto the adult user profile instead of the child one and promptly changed the password. Then logged out and went to the activity we were supposed to be doing. About an hour later, when we're back in the classroom, the teacher is having trouble logging in. She calls the office and it turns out it's a school-wide problem. No one can seem to log into the adult account. At first, they assumed it was a network problem, but about 3 hours later, once an IT guy had driven over, they march us all back into the computer lab and tell us to stand by the computer we had been working on. I, sensing the potential for trouble, go and stand by a different computer. They keep asking us if we're sure we're at the right computer while secretively glancing at the computer I had been on, but none of the students budge an inch. Eventually, they give up and we go back to our regular day, but after that, the adults were always very careful about who was standing near them when they logged in. I wrote my sister's suicide note for her. It was fake. No one was taking her seriously at the partly due to having no insurance. She was admitted for days instead of being sent home after 24-hour suicide watch. So I guess it kinda worked. When I was a kid, I saw my uncle smash a guy on the head with a really big rock at a party. 20 minutes later, I saw all the adults standing around the guy who was laying on the floor with a lot of blood coming out of his head. He didn't appear to be moving. When they noticed me watching, they sent me to a neighbor's house a half a mile away. 3 months later, we go back to that house and the room the guy was laying in was demolished and different people were living there. I asked about the guy that lived there before and my dad straight up punched me in the mouth. TLDR. I think I saw my uncle murder a guy. I made a series of bad choices that led to me cheating on my girlfriend. I told her the next day and we're still together a year later with 0 reoccurrences. Second chances are important. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.